KiraTV always bringing amazing content to the table, with Scientology attacked Anonymous and immediately regretted it. Now, it's not because of my backing as working in finance. It's not anything like that. I just choose not to mess with people on the internet generally because they are better at the internet than I am. I don't really speak about Anonymous. I don't want to poke that bear. I just... That's a no-go for me, Captain. At certain points, cybersecurity will not save you, and that's not a threat. That is a fact about the internet.
In January 2008, the Church of Scientology made a critical error in judgment, which resulted in a declaration of war from the internet's most infamous hacker collective.
That's a mistake. That if that even gets involved, it's like, look, like nope, I don't even want to go near this.
Anonymous. This was the beginning of a movement that captivated millions, and it all started right here.
Hello, leaders of Scientology. We are Anonymous. Over the years, we have been watching you, your campaigns of misinformation, your suppression of dissent, your litigious nature. All of these things have caught our eye. With the leakage of your latest propaganda video into mainstream circulation, the extent of your malign influence over those who have come to trust you as leaders has been made clear to us. Anonymous has therefore decided that your organization should be destroyed.
January 15th.
See, here's the thing about it. Even if this is unfounded, let's say hypothetically this was entirely unfounded, right? This was a random, third party. This wasn't associated with anyone affiliated with Anonymous. Let's just say this was a third party, right? At that point, you need to be looking at your security. You need to be taking this seriously. So in the sphere I am, right? YouTube specifically, this channel, content creation, which we do have another channel that is up and coming at this point in time. Anyways, but if I have somebody, right, and they, go, all React content creators are X, right? Okay, whatever, I can brush it off. This person wants to make broad generalizations, maybe they're projecting, who knows, right? Whatever. If somebody uploads a video saying that Kizuna Kip does this, is this, I am taking action in this regard against Kizuna Kip, suddenly we're in a different ballgame. And what this is when you generalize versus target, right? If I were to say, all pew-pew content on YouTube is perfectly acceptable. That is a broad generalization. Obviously, there's going to be back and forth on that, which I don't think that. I think that there is content that shouldn't be on YouTube, namely the Sneeko incident. I don't think that any form of Sneeko should. I think he's banned at this point, so it's a moot point. But, things like that, things that are potentially illegal, things that can be used in a court of law, allegedly, things that are unsafe, things that just, your average pew owner is going to look at and go, that's literally not how that works, though. You cannot do that. That is not safe, that you're not exercising discipline, etc. And thus leading into, if this was a person, just being an idiot, it's different than Sneeko doing what he did with his pew, trying to be advertiser friendly, directed at Charlie. That most critical. We are in a different ballgame. So circling back, allegedly anonymous, making a targeted statement in this capacity, this Church of Scientology should be taking this seriously. As with anything, right? I mean, we see this in schools, we see this in work, we see this in so many places where, someone could be showing problematic behaviors and it's whatever, as long as they're getting their work, their schoolwork done. Now, the moment that starts crossing a barrier, then you have to take it to consider. If somebody shows up with a specific World War II insignia in their locker, I think my school actually had someone do that. I'd have to talk to my buddy. I think someone did that. Suddenly you're in a different ballgame. What I'm trying to say, in essence, is that when you cross a certain point, when something is targeted enough, or when something is specific enough, you have to take it seriously.
2008, just days prior to Anonymous declaring their war, a 9-minute interview with Tom Cruise leaked.
Oh, he was part of that, wasn't he?
Discussed an active role in the controversial organization known as Scientology.
I'm not going to take a stance on this. I am far from underread. I do not know enough about the Church of Scientology. While I've heard things, nothing enough to be concrete. I do recommend, as always, doing your research into subjects that you don't know about, and I'm going to refrain from comment on the Church of Scientology in the stance is because I am undereducated on the subject.
This leaked video was recorded for internal use for the eyes of Scientology members only. According to Gorka, who hosted the file where other sites would not, it was a video of indoctrination. This interview, as well as other videos that happened to leak, were very quickly suppressed by the church, attempting to censor the freedom of information. This is exactly when Anonymous took notice and declared their war, ending with the now well-known sign-off for the shadowy organization.
We are Anonymous. We are Legion. We do not...
As far as I'm aware, so Anonymous is kind of a blanket name, if you will. It's that, yes, there are individuals that are part of Anonymous. However, it's not that all individuals in Anonymous will work with other individuals in Anonymous. As far as I'm aware, I could be off base on that one. It is truly a hydra. If you happen to catch someone in Anonymous, sure, you might take out some of it, but I mean, you're not... It is an entity that, as long as the internet remains, we will see forms of Anonymous. I feel that this is at least the reasonable conclusion we can draw.
Forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
Little did or could anybody know, this was the start of a reign of terror that lasted for 5 years.
Wow.
Anonymous became the perfect cloak under which to hide for any and all who wished to participate in digital anarchy. Some who did it just for the lulz, some who did it to send a message. One particular group rose from these ashes like a phoenix. Where it all started with Scientology, they would go on to hack some of the largest corporations on the planet, going toe-to-toe with federal government, and left a legacy of pure chaos.
So that's actually why, as far as I'm aware, you can't openly say, you support Anonymous, or that stout supporter, you think in any public capacity, right? I am personally different. I don't know enough about the situation. I have a healthy respect for Anonymous. I have a healthy respect for organizations like that because I'm aware, at least in part, of the power that they hold and command. I'm aware of that. When you start hacking Sony governmental offices, and that starts getting into politics, I'm reeling back a little bit, and I'm having to be careful what I say, right? That is a whole different beast. And that is a whole different ballgame once you approach that. It's not just them hacking Church of Scientology. It's that they're attacking, as you saw, the DOJ, hacking Sony, one of the largest corporations on the planet at this point in time, right? Respect out of admiration or respect out of fear. It's admiration, honestly. I have an understanding, yeah, and absolutely, So if people wanted to dig up things on me, absolutely, they're going to be able to, as you can with anybody with the digital footprint age, right? If you have Crunchyroll allegedly going through some sort of lawsuit recently in regards to leaked information, look it up, recommend doing research. I'm not read enough on it. I saw it in passing. And if you have personal details that are leaked like that, right, or even on YouTube, which is my concern, where if I wanted to file an anti-copyright strike, I have to provide my legal name, which I already provide in the anti-claim. I have to provide my physical address and other identifying information, that if this is a third party that YouTube is upholding who isn't the actual IP holder, and I have to counter strike it, suddenly my information's out there to a third party that has no business having my information. You see how this is problematic in nature. But it is a respect out of admiration, and it's a healthy respect. It's like, I'm aware. Not gonna say anything. I'm aware. Just do you, I'll do me.
This is the rise of Anonymous and their war with Scientology.
Right, Senior Mike, and they're definitely chaotic in nature, I would argue. I'm sorry that you lost a couple buddies because of those cyber attacks.
Prior to these events, Anonymous existed only in the minds of those who frequented the more edgy areas of the internet.
Who is this 4chan person or
who is this 4chan? Oh my god. It's funny because you see this even today. You see this. Who is this 4chan person?
Website.
Prior to 2008, where they did organize briefly, there was no structure. There was no goal.
Close.
It was simply a collective name that people used while doing things to fuck with others. Showing up to video games with identical characters and being disruptive.
I actually have HIV, and
You are in the pool, like, right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Prank calling early internet TV shows.
I'm Xenon. Can you do a barrel roll for me?
A barrel roll?
Do a barrel.
Yeah.
Do a barrel.
A barrel roll.
Is this actually a Star Fox meme?
On air.
Defacing public websites.
Oof.
And posting the results to the growing image board of anonymous users known as 4chan. It was all just a way to have fun on the internet. After January 5th,
I actually have never. I think I've been to 4chan once in high school because I had a buddy who was addicted to like 4chan and stuff. I like went there, I think, once. I don't know. It just doesn't have anything for me.
15th, though, someone decided it was time for a change. A post appeared claiming that it was time for B, the term for the random section of the image board, to do something big. That big thing was to take down Scientology.
See, this is why I have a healthy respect of 4chan. This one is a little bit out of fear, though, because, oh my god, like, we just need, hey, randoms, let's do this. You know, it's just... If 4chan only used their powers for good, let's put it that way.
The comment section of this post was full of people mocking the concept. A random image board cannot take down a pseudo-religion with the backing of wealthy people and an army of lawyers.
Incorrect,
said one poster. And yet, as the thread remained, it filled with more and more people who agreed. And trying to take down this pseudo-religion was exactly what they started to do.
The publicity off of this as well could skyrocket any organization. Not that I'm saying to do this, not that I'm condoning this, not that I'm saying that this is legal and something you should do. All I'm saying is that from their perspective, they could also see this as a nice juicy target that if this succeeds, the publicity and renown they would get off of doing that, and potentially some of the fear that might come off of that, is actually kind of insane.
It all began with an IRC channel. Hundreds of users flooded in, speaking excitedly about the plans that they'd been thinking up. It was all going to start simple. Use popular stress testing websites to perform distributed denial of service attacks on the Scientology websites. A DDoS or DDoS, as it's more commonly known.
This is allegedly what Bungie went through recently. I know Bungie has claimed it was DDoS. However, as far as I'm aware, no independent third party has verified that. So I'm saying allegedly for YouTube's sake.
Essentially harnessing massive amounts of connections, sending data to a server in order to temporarily overwhelm the provider and deny regular service, usually knocking them offline for short periods of time.
As far as I'm aware, this is actually incredibly illegal.
This very quickly became the largest raid in 4chan history, bringing all users of the website back to participate and sparking a feel of mob mentality. Eventually, leaders started to emerge, not in the traditional sense because nobody would listen to an actual leader, but they were the ones putting forth ideas and rounding people up to do things.
Right.
This is how the eventual anonymous war declaration video was created. A single man's idea, but worked on as a collective.
Sort of turbo legal fuel, you're right.
They would sit and laugh about how over the top it was, knowing full well that things were not going to go much further than what they always did. Just a bit of light trolling, a little bit of DDoSing, and then people would get bored and move on.
Right.
But not this time. Even the organizers had no idea how far-reaching this movement was going to be.
Internet outrage is approximately about 2 weeks, right? Remember Logan Paul and his involvement with CryptoZoo? I'm going to say for legal reasons, involvement in CryptoZoo, not that it was a scam one way or the other. I don't have all the facts and figures in front of me. There are far more qualified individuals such as CoffeeZilla and subsequently who were watching KiraTV who could, more definitively say one way or the other, citing that his involvement in CryptoZoo really only had outrage for 2 weeks each time. The internet is a very non-retentive place for certain things, which is problematic when certain things come up, such as the Logan Paul Japan incident. I think that should be taken a lot more into consideration personally. That was a little too far in a lot of aspects, and you'll have it goes with a number of things. Internet outrage is approximately 2 weeks, unless it's something really agree. This is definitely the oddity, is what I'm trying to say.
Mainstream publications picked up on the video declaring war against Scientology, and the hundreds of IRC users turned to thousands overnight. The mainstream news talking about this had essentially signal boosted what was initially going to be somewhat of a joke.
Right.
The result was, ironically, the IRC servers being used by Anonymous being DDoSed with real traffic from all the new recruits who were joining by the minute. They'd heard that Anonymous was going after Scientology, and they wanted to be involved. At this point, they eventually had to split the IRC into multiple servers due to the sheer scale of what was now known as Operation Chanology. Leadership still didn't exist in any traditional sense, but there were more reputable and organized channels who would hash out the next steps, which for now was limited to figuring out which of the several DDoS tools to use and on which specific Scientology websites, as well as marketing which meant essentially creating memes.
I would argue we actually saw memes. I can't actually touch on that because that gets into current events, so I can't even touch on that, actually. Redact that statement. No, memes are incredibly powerful. Memes are incredibly powerful for marketing and shifting public opinion, and it's actually, I would argue it's actually a strength that, you know, Anonymous doesn't have a singular head or singular heads, because you can have individuals like this on the 4chan board that are sparking ideas, promoting ideas, but ultimately it's up to specific groups of people, specific partnerships, you know, even individuals that will take these ideas and then enact on those, which makes it much harder. You can't necessarily cut the head off of a snake. It does become the aforementioned cut the head off of a hydra to replace it.
The first big blow was struck on January 19th, where Anonymous managed to collectively bring down the Scientology main website entirely.
That's wild.
Which again caught the attention of Sky and Fox News, who in their uninformed, sensational, and laughably boom away, called this group super hackers.
Oh no.
In reality, very few
that's how you fuel more hackers.
people of the thousands involved had even a remote concept of how to hack anything.
I like, is that a banana or is that a corn? I can't tell what that is. It looks like the holder you have for corn cobs, where you put the butter in, you put the corn cob in, then you shut it.
They were essentially just running a program they were told to use, and that was that. Either way, the first blow had been struck, and Scientology was now responding. They talked in interviews with the media about how the hackers were cyber terrorists who were performing hate crimes against religious groups.
I'm not commenting on that. Nope, not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
They also employed a cybersecurity company to assist in their defense against the...
I read that as Prilosec, actually. Oh my god, what has Game Grumps done to me? Just remembered Aaron's quote. He was playing, what a Kirby game? Prilosec.
novice DDoS attacks of the Anonymous collective. The ball was back in Anonymous's court, and their response was protests.
That's a
They'd
Wiimote.
already organized the IRC into channels based on city locations, and so they scheduled what they referred to as making the internet go outside. They used this as an opportunity for more marketing by
touch grass before touch grass. Oh, whoa, what?
Essentially leaking protest dates and locations to media outlets, and told people to wear masks while heading to the Scientology church locations. The results of this were originally nowhere near as impactful as you would expect, but it did show a willingness within the community to really put themselves out there for this cause.
So here's the thing about this that's also kind of terrifying, is that the individuals going here could also not be anonymous. Not saying everyone isn't. There could be people in the crowd that are part of Anonymous. There could be people in the crowd that are 4chan users. There could be people that hear it's a thing and will want to add their voice to the cause without being part of the cause itself. So that's a terrifying... It becomes an IRL game of Among Us, if you will.
Which was still lacking in real direction, and more of a joke than any real threat. Over the coming months, though, over 7,000 people showed up across 70 different cities during the protests.
Wild.
Definitely not a small number, and considering the level of engagement would be considerably lower than that of the people willing to participate online, it was a scary thought as to how many people were backing this collective and just how many people were anonymous.
I mean, they're not doing anything, right? They're not... So I'm like, because the officers are clearly standing there. They're not making arrests. They're not doing it. They're clearly just standing there in... Is it a right to pro? It's not a right to right to gather, right? So that I don't know. It's interesting to see.
This is also where the mask from V for Vendetta was co-opted and popularized as a symbol of Anon,
the guy
which
Fox
went
Maps.
together perfectly with their new mantra.
We are anonymous. We are legion. Expect us.
It's hard to, because you'll see any TikTok, I'm sure it's on YouTube Shorts as well, right? You'll see quote unquote messages from Anonymous. It's because of the nature of it. It's hard to tell if somebody's trying to go for clout and using the anonymous imagery, likeness, etc., just for reviews, or if it's actually not. And that also in itself is just kind of beautifully terrifying.
At this
People
stage,
protest,
the more ambitious voices in the movement had started to notice the power they could wield if they were only to get organized. A French PhD student known as Hausch sent out a scout to survey each of the hundreds of IRC channels, who acted as a splinter cell of the collective, finding which of the voices within commanded the most respect, then inviting them to join a more private group who would hopefully decide the future of the movement behind the scenes.
Normally, I would say that's bait. Normally, I would say that That's like it's like when you go like, what is it? We watched Some Ordinary Gamers, the Mutahar Dark Web video, buy Red Room photos here, send your Bitcoin here. And it's like, that's a trap, homie. That's see what you're doing there, FBI, CIA, allegedly. I see what you're doing there. I respect it. Not saying they're actually distributing it. It is to get crypto and then tracking the wallet to these individuals that are stupid enough to put their information in to try and go look for this content.
Meetings began to be hosted regularly for hours at a time, but pretty soon they discovered that there was no real way to properly organize such a group. Infighting started almost immediately. The leadership group was then leaked to the masses, and generally people were bored with the low levels of impact they were actually having on the Church of Scientology.
Oh no.
It didn't help as well that the FBI had already scooped up and arrested 2 people out of the thousands who had performed some of the earliest DDoS attacks some months ago.
That actually holds some weight from my understanding, actually being involved in the DDoS.
Putting everyone on notice that involvement in this matter was not a joke, and there could be very, very real, life-changing consequences.
Absolutely, yes. Well, there is anonymity on the internet, like if it can get traced back to you. We've been, what was it? Was it the Frosties NFTs? I think it was the Frosties NFTs. There was a individual that was using things like tornado.cash to, spin the money in that tumbler, right? And was using, I believe it was the TunnelBear VPN. And I think it was the FBI actually was able to trace the money through Tornado Cash when it came out to where it came from, trace it through TunnelBear, all because the individual was allegedly using like his home phone or something like that. Like, it's wild what your digital footprint is, and I think people aren't as cognizant as they should be on that.
In one of these cases, the church sued a college kid for $100,000 in damages for his part in the DDoS, which was eventually lowered to $20,000, which he was ordered to pay back in full.
Yeah.
They also pushed for a 12-month jail sentence to deter others, with the lawyer claiming Anonymous resembled Nazis and terrorists.
Not going to comment on that. That is a wide... Yeah, no, I'm not moving on.
The young man did eventually plead guilty and accept a year in prison.
I don't have enough understanding to really comment.
As a collective, anybody could join, and they could join for any reason. The barrier for entry was simple: be involved, say you are Anonymous, and that's it.
Yeah.
The concept of Anonymous is ethereal, and that is exactly what scared security experts.
It's an idea, right? If you go, we've talked about Code Geass on this channel, right? The Zero Requiem, Lelouch being the demon, the idea of Zero Requiem. I'm tangenting really hard. I'm actually going to redact that. Anyways, but like sometimes the idea of something can be immortal. The idea of Zero in that case, right, was immortal. It was, regardless of who was under the mask in the ending, it was the idea of Zero, a individual that gave hope to those who had none, an idea for people to rally behind. Sometimes that's really all it takes to spark change.
It could be anyone, it could be everyone, and that was terrifying.
If it can be proved that you willingly provide a connection for a DDoS attack, it's a federal felony. Interesting. Thank you, Raven. I appreciate that.
This was the biggest weapon in the Anonymous arsenal, but also their biggest weakness. What everyone quickly discovered was that anyone being able to claim Anonymous or join the ranks could also rock the whole boat.
Mm-hmm.
They could do things that ruin future plans.
Yeah.
They could be law enforcement. They could convince others to change course. They could destabilize or undermine the effort of what was now a splintered faction.
Mm-hmm.
Where previously it was Anonymous versus Scientology, and it seemed like they were moving in the same direction, there were now 2 groups: those who wanted to fuck around and make memes, and those who wanted to use their power for activism.
Mm-hmm.
These 2 groups did not get along with each other at all. And if that wasn't bad enough, each group also had infighting. It was always, since the beginning, a complete mess.
Right.
But now, without a core focus and a fresh target in their mind, it was just pure chaos.
And that is without having any sort of leadership structure. That is something you will run into in an organization. That's not a diss, that's a critique.
By the end of 2008, a full year of messing with Scientology, with ongoing but diminishing protests and online attacks, the church had learned their lesson and listened to the expert advice.
Mm-hmm.
They were now playing dead, like an animal trying to avoid a predator.
Mm.
The Anons wanted to get a reaction, and in the absence of a reaction, things calmed down purely due to boredom.
Don't
Where
feed.
previously Scientology.
This can go back to don't feed the internet trolls. If someone's trolling you and you feed them, they're just gonna troll you harder. But if you leave them alone, they're gonna get bored eventually.
Just would react
you can see a
publicly outside
parallel.
of protests. They now simply stopped coming outside. Where they would previously publish public statements in the media, they simply remained quiet. This seems like the end of a story, but in reality, it was the very beginning. Yes, the protests and cyber attacks against the church stopped completely, which brought an end to Operation Chanology, as well as an end to Anonymous as a singular entity with a common goal, but it was the beginning of something much bigger and much scarier. You see, what nobody knew was that in the early days of Operation Chanology, an entirely different and considerably more dangerous group had briefly taken notice of the potential of Anonymous. A collective was now forming behind the scenes, with a handful of names who would go on to perform some of the most infamous hacks on the planet against some of the largest corporations in the world. Some names that are now famous if you are all familiar with this group. Black hat hackers who didn't rely on memes and childish programs to bring down servers, instead using real skills to cause damage in the billions. And when asked why they did it all, they had one simple answer: for the lulz.
Yeah. Somebody that just wants to do it just because they want to do it is a terrifying thing. So, one of those things that I just look at, and it's there are hacker groups to this day. I mean, there is the alleged Lazarus group. I believe they're North Korean, but they're responsible for a lot of crypto hacks, from my understanding. And even then, you could just have people that are really good at the internet. It's not just Anonymous out there. Anonymous, I do have a healthy respect for. I, don't want to invoke their ire in any capacity. I would argue, I would agree with chat. They are chaotic neutral at times, absolutely. But be safe on the internet. Make sure that while my information's out there anyways. I'd recommend making sure that you're trying to minimize what you can, not because you're necessarily doing anything right, but as somebody that used to work in finance, not that I'm giving financial advice, this shouldn't be taken as financial advice in any capacity. Just maybe it's not the best thing just to post your address, phone number, full name, date of birth, anything like that in places that it has no place being, or giving it to people that it has no business going to, which is actually a big issue with YouTube's copyright system, specifically with strikes and trying to counter those. But what are your thoughts on this? Obviously, we can't really have people in chat saying, "Oh, I did this. I helped Anonymous with this." I discourage that because of the penalties. Assisting, aiding, taking part in certain activities could get you in. All that fun stuff. But what are your thoughts? Honestly, I think KiraTV. Kira's an awesome person. Watched their content for a while, and they seem super legit. They always bring awesome subjects to the table. Have you seen any other Kira content? Did this make you go and watch some Kira content? Let me know in the comment section, and I will see you all in the next one.